Story 1. When they are never able to say they were wrong about something, we all make mistakes sometimes. Story 2. In a professional setting, admit when you make a mistake. Saying I made a mistake earns my respect. Story 3. When people take joy in challenging everything you say, I think it is called a contrarian personality. Story 4. Making fun of someone or putting someone down for how they laugh. Laughter is such a genuine and beautiful way to express joy. Don't be a dick. Story 5. Someone who has to contradict me or be contrarian about things I say or do. For anything I say, they jump on it. Well, actually, the sky isn't blue, it's more cerulean. If this is a personality trait, they are a miserable person to be around. Making fun of mistakes you made in a playful way is really toxic too. Story 6. There is a kind of high-energy person I can never trust. The kind of youth pastor energy that feels like a performance. They are always excited and ready to go. I love positive people, but I have found this type of person tends to mask a lot of darkness beneath their performance. Story 7. I can't exactly put it into words, but some people don't converse with you. They use you as a tool to reflect their ego. Story 8. Intentionally using inside jokes or references with friends around others who clearly will not understand them, then saying things like, if you know, or not providing any context or explanation. Why would you purposely make someone feel excluded and awkward? Story 9. Buying high-end items and bragging about them, especially when everyone knows you cannot afford them because you owe money to several people in the friendship group. Story 10. When someone uses your name too often in conversation, it feels inauthentic. Story 11. People who become overly familiar too soon, make dirty jokes, act touchy, and invade your personal space. Story 12. When someone my own age says, "Oh honey" or "Oh sweetie," you have no idea. It feels rude to me. Many people treat it as banter, which I find odd. Story 13. People who are helpful or friendly only when it benefits them. Story 14. There is a certain type of person, most often men but sometimes women, who has a way of interacting with women that shows that, no matter how polite they are, they think women as a group are not worth their time unless the women flatter them or they want to sleep with them. Story 15. I am 5 feet 11 inches and female, so I mean men around 6 feet 2 inches or taller. Men who are bigger and make their whole personality about being fun and cuddly but feel the need to tell everyone about it freak me out. If you are a nice guy, you are a nice guy. You do not need to tell everyone. Story 16. When people do not ask questions in a conversation, it feels like I am interviewing them. Story 17. An adult not being able to handle no is problematic. What follows from that has never been pleasant. Story 18. When something goes wrong for you, you notice a gleam in their eye. Story 19. Oversharing personal information, especially drama about children or a spouse, too soon in a relationship, is concerning. If you tell me about your child's eating disorder the second time we meet, can I trust you with my secrets? Story 20. Maybe this is very specific, but women who claim to be petite, cute, and harmless and who keep joking about it or pointing it out often turn out to be aggressive and rude beneath the cutesy surface. Story 21. Their pet runs away when they enter the room. Story 22. I now get bad vibes from anyone who, early in a conversation, quickly brings up their church and beliefs. In the last few years, every person I dealt with in business and civic settings who was quick to point out that they were devoted Christians turned out to be untrustworthy, difficult, and petty. They were also hypocritical. They expected everyone else to play fair and be kind while they behaved badly, backstabbing and lying. I have found that those who are truly faithful to Christian or other religious principles show it by living those principles. They do not announce their faith as a trust me move. Story 23. When someone you do not know well says, "I probably shouldn't tell you this," and then volunteers personal information or criticizes that person, they will do it to you as well. Story 24. People who don't take no for an answer, especially men. For example, "I'll carry your bag." "No, it's okay. I'll carry it myself." "No, I will carry it for you." "Really, it's okay. I mean it, I will carry your bag." That gets weird. Or when people insist you do something. For them, "What are you doing this weekend?" "I'm going out with friends on Friday evening." You must text me about it on Saturday, you must. I don't feel obligated to text you. That kind of forced energy feels off. Also, people who don't respect your relationship or push boundaries. Story 25. Telling exaggerated or fantastical stories right away to make themselves look cool. Compulsive lying has bothered me since I was a child. Story 26. They know just enough therapeutic language to pepper it into conversation and use it as leverage, but they do not practice the frameworks they discuss. It is difficult to describe, but it feels icky when you can sense it. Story 27. Overly familiar. You have just met this person, and already they are making good-natured jibes or challenging your statements. We are not friends, buddy, and it looks like we will not be. Story 28. Someone who tries to impress me with big or unnecessary words. Someone who uses the word family to imply a relationship that is more than transactional, such as car dealerships, cellular phone companies, or other businesses. The phrase, "when you're here, your family from Olive Garden," is not true. I am not here to visit family. I am here to pay too much for pasta and for garlic bread that looks like a hot dog bun. Story 29. Their kids don't talk to them and they have no idea why. Story 30. I went on a date with a man who tossed the money on the counter for the cashier to pick up instead of placing it in the cashier's outstretched hand. He was an asshole. Story 31. When they ask questions in a very uninterested way, it feels as if this person is absent. Story 32. People who post pictures of you after you've asked them not to, or when they know you look bad in the photo. I had friends and acquaintances who did this on purpose and turned out to be terrible people. Story 33. Some people are very hard on others but easy on themselves. Story 34. People second-guess my medical dietary restrictions. This comes in 3 general types. 1. Quacks who think bee pollen, probiotics, or acupuncture will cure me. 2. Disbelievers who nod and listen, then contaminate my safe food 10 minutes later because they do not think it is that serious. 3. Food faddists who treat it as a lifestyle choice and try to persuade me to try vegetarianism, the Paleolithic diet, or the ketogenic diet. Unrelated to my dietary restrictions, I also get stress migraines. Although I am good at saying no, it is draining to deal with these incompetent people. Story 35. A person who assumes an intimate or close relationship with you too soon, especially when they begin giving you nicknames. Story 36. Needing to instantly teach me about or convince me of something. Story 37. Once you know what beer sweat smells like, you can find a lot of alcoholics, at least beer drinkers. Story 38. People who comment when you are getting a serving of food and say you will get fat. Mate, how many tomatoes do you think I plan to eat to gain weight? That was what was happening the last time I heard such nonsense. You are not cute or clever. Keep your comment to yourself. Story 39. People who are intensely attached to the idea that a particular product is the only good one, and that anyone with a different preference is stupid, irrational, or has bad values fail to understand that people differ and have diverse preferences, needs, and priorities. Story 40. You can tell a lot by what you see in a person's eyes or what you don't see. Referencing religion immediately makes me wary. Always being positive or cheery makes me think they have some dark issues going on. Story 41. They immediately declare how honest, relaxed, kind, and generous they are, but they are usually the opposite of that declaration. Story 42. A person with a herd mentality is not necessarily shy or being bullied. They actively seek to be swept up in whatever other people or groups are saying, feeling, or doing in order to belong, even when it conflicts with ethical or moral standards. Story 43. This may sound strange, but people who are too nice up front can be a warning sign. A good friend of mine ended up with a boyfriend who was just a little too eager to ingratiate himself with the rest of the friend group. I did not tell my friend because I would have sounded very paranoid and I was not sure myself. I even said that he seemed nice and I approved. A few months later, she told me what was happening and asked if I believed her, because some others had not since he seemed so nice. That shows how effective this tactic can be for abusers. I told her that I had picked up on it at the first meeting with him and I apologized for not saying anything. She said it was okay because she would not have listened to me at that time anyway. I do not think I would have picked up on it at all if I had not had an abusive parent. Story 44. When someone I have just met or a casual acquaintance assumes I share their beliefs and prejudices, it is really gross. Story 45. Eye contact that is slightly too intense and lasts too long. Story 46. People who are overly friendly and ask too many personal questions right away make me uncomfortable. It also creeps me out when a man uses pet names. Story 47. There is a certain tone some people use when talking about others that really rubs me the wrong way. It is smug and full of self-importance. I will be the first to admit that I talk about other people when they are not in the room, but if you are going to do that, you should be fair to that person even though they cannot hear. Sharing extremely personal details you do not have permission to share, or getting on a high horse is not okay. It is worse if the thing you feel superior about is trivial. Story 48. Anyone who tells you more than once who they are is lying about it, and for good reason. I first noticed it while interviewing people for a job, but now I see it everywhere. Someone who says I am just an honest bloke is often a massive liar. Someone who says I am not a violent person is basically Psycho Paul. Someone who says I am really straightforward is often the most manipulative, conniving person you will ever meet. Someone who says I am an empath often has the least empathy of any living person. Someone who says I am not an emotional person or I am a logical person may cry when they do not get their way and think anger is not an emotion. If someone says I am really easygoing, prepare to be nitpicked within an inch of your life. Story 49. Crazy eyes. Once you know what they look like, you see them everywhere. Story 50. They are overly negative and quick to judge others. This is especially true if they participate in forums like this one or the Am I the Asshole forum. They seem to need anonymity to be honest about their lives. Story 51. People who say just kidding or don't take this personally are rarely joking and usually mean it. Story 52. These are not jokes. Asking what color underwear you are wearing today is inappropriate. Saying that someone should settle down because it was just a joke does not excuse it. Jokes should be funny. What you said was sexual harassment. Story 53. If someone makes fun of women's basketball, they are probably not a good person. I don't even watch it. I'm just not into sports. Story 54. When someone tells you to forgive a person who has been toxic or abusive, yet they have never experienced it firsthand, it makes me question whether they are an abuser themselves. Story 55. When you meet someone on a narrow path and they show no sign of giving way or consideration, and just keep walking assuming you will move for them, that is inconsiderate. The opposite is when someone steps aside a little, you both do the same, smile, and make way for each other. I love those people. Story 56. When I meet a new couple, a man and a woman, and the woman and I get along and she wants me to be her gay best friend, the man often becomes territorial, wrapping his arms around her in front of me or suddenly acting extra affectionate. Even when they know I am gay, he still does this, which gives off jealous boyfriend vibes. Story 57. When you close my curtain after entering my house, it makes me uncomfortable, and I will never invite you inside again. Story 58. Some people pretend to listen, but the moment you hand them the microphone, they change the subject. They do not even respond with something like that is crazy. I am trying to connect with you here. Story 59. When I can't put my finger on the reason, my intuition tells me something is wrong. Story 60. People who go out of their way to kill bugs really irk me. Story 61. Many things I notice when I meet people. People who immediately start telling you about their anxiety and depression and dump their therapy speech in your lap. You know that is all you will hear from this person. People, especially men, who view every aspect of life as a competition. Job status, income, houses, cars, sports accomplishments. They even view handshakes as a sport. Amateur political and social experts. I just met you. This is a kid's birthday party. Please do not spend the next hour and a half telling me about critical race theory and how I am a covert racist, full of microaggressions, and not a real friend to lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people if I do not attend the Pride Parade. It is okay for you to preach because you are white passing and understand your privilege, but you do the work and fight for others. Look, ma'am, I introduced myself and asked if you liked the 5-layer bean dip you were eating, based on a true story. The controlling, narcissistic, likely woman-beating boyfriend or husband. He has his public nice guy mask on, but you can peek around the edges. The subtle criticism of her food choice at the barbecue, the way his head snaps when she says something he does not like. A small perceived slight met with a snarling curl of the lip. I know what you are, buddy. And when the time is right, I am going to push every last button you have twice. I want to watch you melt down in front of anyone while I play the dumbfounded idiot, asking why he is so upset and saying I did not mean anything. Shucks. The it girl. Everything is streamed, photographed, and curated for TikTok and Instagram and has to be perfect. No actual engagement with the real world. Everything is experienced through a phone lens and uploaded. Usually paired with a significant other who is exhausted and bored out of their mind. I get exhausted seeing how exhausted they are. And finally, the Johnny Ringo types of the world. But there is just something about him. Something around the eyes I do not know, it reminds me of me. No, I am sure of it. I hate him. Story 62. The way they banter with other people makes me uneasy. I have met a handful of people who, as soon as they are introduced to me, act overly familiar with those around us, sometimes trying to include me, sometimes not. It seems insincere or insecure, as if they are trying to prove how popular they are, and it immediately puts me on edge. Story 63. Giving me a sob story right away. We all have problems. Life is difficult for many people right now, but if you lead with tales of job loss, disability, disease, bankruptcy, children with special needs, house fires, and so on immediately after saying, "Hi, my name is," I will think you are a con artist. Too much, too soon. Story 64. When people give me a nickname when we have just met, I do not like it. I introduce myself by my name, but people often shorten it because they heard my husband use it or because it is a common shortening. If I tell you my name, use it. Story 65. When they make plans with someone else right in front of you, especially if you are in the same friend group, it is so disrespectful. Story 66. When they describe certain people as narcissists, the floodgates are breached. Story 67. People who have a vocal, deep hatred of cats baffle me. What is that about? I never trust people like that. I understand not liking or being interested in a particular animal, but despising it is a different matter. Story 68. People who don't return their cart to a parking space at the grocery store are instantly icky. Story 69. If they have a bunch of face skins nailed to their living room wall and they all look like me. Story 70. Suck-ups. If you constantly try to suck up to me, it usually means you are up to no good. Are you overcompensating for a lack of honesty, hiding a poor work ethic, or distracting from some other bad act? I like an occasional sincere compliment, but if you are laying it on thick all the time, I see you. Get away from me. Story 71. Generally has a bad attitude, is moody, hates everything, and believes in nothing. Story 72. People who litter really annoy me. Why do you throw trash on the ground? It's gross. It also makes me wonder what their homes are like. Do they still live with their mother, who does everything for them, so their level of respect is to throw things on the ground for somebody else to pick up? Grow up. Story 73. When someone says something you enjoy is for kids and bullies you for liking it, remember that making fun of someone for enjoying something aimed at a younger audience is more childish than enjoying it. Story 74. Talking about themselves in the third person. Personifying cars and body parts. Story 75. This is a bit of a hot take. Someone who always looks immaculate and puts a great deal of effort into their appearance suggests to me that they may be superficial or have too much time on their hands. Don't they have family, pets, or hobbies they would rather spend quality time with? Also, why the obsession with certain brands and the tendency to dismiss everything else as inferior, refusing to consider or listen to other people's positive experiences with other brands? Story 76. When someone makes a direct judgment about another person, it immediately chills me. Story 77. People who dislike others just because those others have a pleasant personality, attractive appearance, or other admirable qualities are showing insecurity and jealousy. Those people are always looking for something wrong with you. They cannot wait to humiliate you by saying you are not perfect so they can feel better about themselves. Confident people uplift others and are kind because there are already enough bad things in the world to be upset about. Story 78. Treating cleaners, waitstaff, shelf stockers, and other low-wage workers poorly and being rude or nasty to them, even if you think they are not doing a good job. Story 79. If someone describes themselves as feisty or says they speak their mind, I find them incredibly rude and ill-mannered. Story 80. Someone who looks over your shoulder or off into the distance while you are talking, as if they have better things to do. I am known to stop talking mid-sentence and walk away when people do that. Story 81. A red hat and a lifted truck. Bonus points if the person is wearing some form of camouflage. Story 82. When yoga or another spiritual practice is no longer just a practice and becomes someone's entire personality, you exude such inauthenticity that it is alarming. If you read the first sentence and became angry enough to downvote, write me a paragraph, and then block me so I cannot respond, this is completely about you. Grow up. You are insufferable and extremely insecure. Story 83. Pretension. An ounce of pretension is worth a pound of manure. If you recognize where that line comes from, we are friends now. Story 84. When you are in a group and one person gives another person a look, a side eye, and a smile that shows they are judging them. That's such a bitchy thing to do. Story 85. Poor grooming habits. Entering my personal space. Being overly friendly too early in the introduction phase, especially if they try to touch me. Asking personal questions. Displaying photos of me in their cubicle. Story 86. There is a specific type of rambling that immediately tells me we are not going to be friends. It is when people get lost in their own side of the conversation. I have had acquaintances and bosses like this, and it is a unique kind of frustration. In casual conversation, a story should relate to the topic, not be an endless stream of details that never reach a point, often followed by visible disappointment when someone interrupts because the speaker would have kept talking indefinitely. If someone is my boss, it is their responsibility to make clear what is casual chat, what are instructions, what are tasks, and what is brainstorming. If a boss mixes those together, they cannot reasonably be upset that instructions were not followed when the instructions were scattered among half-finished stories, an unrelated rant, and brainstorming about solutions. Story 87. I immediately disconnect from anyone who calls themselves old in their 30s. They do not like it when I refuse to join in and point out that they were only 5 years old in the 1990s. Story 88. Mouth or nose noises. I am irrationally enraged by them. I always have been. Story 89. I cannot be friends with women. All my friends are men because women are too much drama. Every woman I have met who has said this or something similar has been the one to start drama and be catty toward other women for no reason. I am not basing this on bad vibes or a feeling, or on disliking women who get along better with men. This comes from real experiences with multiple women who have said things like this. I have also met women who tend to have more male friends who do not say things like this, and they have typically been kind and supportive. Story 90. If someone litters, even if it is a tiny balled-up gum wrapper, I immediately think they're a trash person and low class. Extra negative points if, instead of picking it up when I call them out, they say, I'm keeping the cleaning people employed. Story 91. Do not interrupt me or anyone else. Trust me, you are not that smart, not that important. Story 92. It is hurtful when the first thing people comment on is my disability and the whole conversation revolves around it. Complete strangers have gone out of their way to talk to me about my health. Story 93. Women who never raise their voices and always speak in a sweet tone, as if addressing children on their first day of school. Story 94. When men have hypersexualized tattoos of women, featuring bondage, distorted anatomy, or explicit imagery, I stay away from them. Story 95. I avoid men who are comfortable complaining about or putting down their wife or girlfriend in front of me. The same goes for men who show off. Story 96. This works better on straight men than on anyone else if they do not look me in the eye during a conversation. I am a middle-aged, ugly, fat woman. Many people, particularly straight men, assume that means I am irrelevant and do not deserve basic respect. Edit. I used makes eye contact as a substitute for is engaged in the conversation we are having rather than being distracted or dismissive. Another user pointed out that a lack of eye contact does not always mean a lack of attention. Story 97. A man who acts like a bro posting his obsession with goth girls. Do they really not know that this marks him as a creep and the butt of jokes? Story 98. If there is any mustache twirling, I am extremely leery. Story 99. When someone is talking about their children and it starts to drift into weird territory, like bragging about how many girls your 4-year-old is kissing, how he is so attractive compared to other children, or how he is juggling 2 little girlfriends at the same time, it gives me weird vibes. Story 100. Complaining about adult children is a sign of poor parenting. Story 101. When you politely nod or say hi to someone, and they stare at you without acknowledging you. Story 102. When someone who has helped you out of the kindness of their heart asks for a favor in return, then starts moving the goalposts to complete that favor, it feels manipulative. Example. A friend covered my prescription because I had forgotten my debit card. She said I did not need to pay her back but asked for help around the house when we returned to her place. I agreed and helped, but the next day she berated me for not keeping up my end of the deal and accused me of taking advantage of her. You paid $20 for a prescription because I forgot my card. I spent 8 hours cleaning your house. I did what you asked and more because I enjoyed your company. That is not an equivalent exchange. Why are you trying to manipulate me into doing more? Take your $20 and leave me alone. Story 103. People who feel they must fill every moment of silence may find pauses awkward, especially with people they do not know. Sitting in silence between conversations is okay. Story 104.1. Someone who refuses to admit they are wrong or who always has to correct you. 2. Someone who can never say sorry or admit they messed up. The sooner those 2 things are said after their respective incidents, the easier it is to clean up the mess. Story 105. I'll go with location. Why are you standing in a dark corner at night? Why are you loitering in the parking lot when it doesn't look like you're searching for your car? Is there a reason you're walking so close to me? There is an entire sidewalk. Story 106. People who study you while you speak, scanning you up and down. You can feel them staring when you look away. They seem nice, but you can tell they are plotting. Story 107. Not really a bad vibe, but I just find it unsettling when someone addresses me by my name often. Story 108. First, trauma dumping. I am not saying emotions are bad, but if I do not know you and you are crying on my shoulder about how your father beat you as a child, it is a red flag for me. Feels selfish and I do not know if I want to engage. Second, I have noticed this more in men than in women. The belief that you do not know why people do not want to date you because you are so nice, or saying things like women always want the bad guys. You are probably a bad person, and that is why no one loves you. Third, men who have nothing good to say about women, and vice versa. The men example affects me more because I date more men than women. I do not think many people understand how common it is to meet a man who genuinely does not like or respect women as human beings without expecting anything sexual. I know many men in real life who consistently post insulting content about women, to the point where I wonder if they are attracted to the wrong gender. That is not normal behavior. Story 109. Introduces himself as a male feminist and an ally while making what he considers harmless gender jokes. Story 110. Smiling too broadly. In my retail experience, only one person who smiled that broadly was honest. She was a bit eccentric. Everyone else who came to the fitting room smiling like that stole or attempted to steal. They seemed to overdo friendliness and likability to avoid suspicion. Story 111. People who make random, broad judgments, like, I don't like people who wear yellow shoes, irritate me. It suggests they judge others constantly to compensate for their own insecurities. People who comment on others' physical appearance give me bad vibes. There is also that indescribable feeling you sometimes get around certain people. They do nothing particular, but your instinct immediately says no. Story 112. When someone agrees with everything I say or claims to have experienced what I describe, it feels inauthentic. Story 113. People who tell you how funny they are guaranteed not to be. Story 114. They treated me like one of the guys. A male friend masculinized my name so he could treat me that way. No thanks. You can treat me like a person or a friend without doing that. Story 115. People who try to get too close too quickly and then get offended when I do not immediately give them all of my time. Story 116. People who have no concept of others' mental health emotionally dump on their friends, complaining constantly. I want to help you, but I cannot make you take care of yourself, and you are draining the energy I need. It is hard. I wish things could be easier for everyone. Story 117. There is a certain kind of person who will interrupt your conversation to make a joke or tell an anecdote they cannot hold in. They presumably believe it will be more engaging than what was being said. Often it works for them, but it is alienating if you do not enjoy being cut off and usually feel like an outsider. Oh yay! I'm finally getting along. Never mind. I'm back out. They usually know what they are doing and give inconsistent excuses for not changing that behavior. Another issue is when a smoker assumes nobody in the group will mind them smoking as long as they are outside. My lungs are not great, so I appreciate people asking or stepping away. In the past, if I asked someone to stop or move, they acted very inconvenienced, so now I avoid doing it. I end up the one complaining while someone else decides what goes in my body, and I am unlikely to get along with someone who puts me in that position. Recently, I was smoke-bombed by a man who passed me with a cigarette inches from my nose. Uncontrollable dry heaving as the blood vessels in my eyes start to pop is not a pleasant experience. I do not think he knows about that. Story 118. This might sound weird, but the way people look at me matters. I am a somewhat attractive woman in my early 20s. If someone looks at me with eyes that make me want to hide away, I know they are not trustworthy. Story 119. Some people make being Christian their whole personality. It can feel like they are compensating for or hiding something. Story 120. When people can only describe someone they like as nice, it feels like they do not know that person well enough to have a more descriptive impression. Just me, though. Story 121. Vanderbilt graduates and law enforcement officers almost always let you know they are within 2 minutes of meeting you. Story 122. I worked at the same company for 24 years. Over that time, it became clear that people who washed their hands were nicer, more considerate, and had more character than those who did not. Simply urinating is bad enough, but people who defecate and do not wash their hands are unsanitary. Story 123. I don't know how to explain it, but I focus on people's eyes. It does not matter whether someone can maintain eye contact. When their eyes seem shut off, I do not trust them. It feels like there are doors behind their pupils. If the doors are closed, I suspect they are hiding something harmful. If the doors are open, it is fine. I have said, I don't know about them. Their eyes are closed off, and later discovered they were addicted, manipulative, or homophobic. Having secrets is different from being closed off. I respect people's privacy. This reaction only happens when I sense something harmful or objectionable. Story 124. When someone's default speaking volume is shouting, it drives me insane. Story 125. When someone has thousands of friends, it suggests they get along with many people. If you get along with everyone, you are not picky about whom you spend time with. If there is a person I really dislike but you are friends with both of us, you are probably listening to that person talk badly about me and vice versa. I would rather hang out with someone who takes sides. But that is just me. Story 126. People you don't really know call you honey and get too close. That freaks me out. Story 127. Unusually high energy bothers me. Not in a neurodivergent way, which is a separate issue, but someone mentioned youth pastor energy, which is an immediate turnoff, as is megachurch pastor energy. There is something about that exaggerated high energy that sets me off, even before I notice other things with my autistic senses. I can recall only one time this happened. It was last year when I went to where I play Dungeons and Dragons. I am usually one of the first people at the table besides the dungeon master. When I arrived, the dungeon master and a random player were there. Something about that player set my gut on edge. Part of it was his high energy, which continued throughout the session. At first I assumed it was my autism, even though I had played with random players there before. When I got home, the table's group chat was blowing up with everyone else able to articulate what I could not. There was something off about this guy, and several players who were usually high energy themselves said he was even more high energy and was too much even for them. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.